Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Spectra Logic Black Pearl and Avid Interplay PAM-MAM Solution webinar hosted by Annex Pro here in Vancouver, Canada. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kerry Corlett, and I'm the president and founder of Annex Pro. Annex Pro is a value-added reseller of software, hardware, and IT infrastructure that specializes in the media and entertainment industry. Annex Pro is headquartered in Vancouver, and we also have offices in Montreal and Toronto, Canada. I'm excited to host this presentation today as Spectra Logic has some interesting workflow solutions relevant to existing and prospective Avid users. So we hope you find this presentation compelling. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. Shortly, I will introduce Paul Brack, the Partner Account Manager at Avid, who will present an overview of Avid Everywhere. Paul will then hand it over to Jeff Bronstein from Spectra Logic, who will take us through a presentation on how Spectra Black Pearl enables an end-to-end workflow when working with Avid. All attendees are in mute mode, but there will be a Q&A at the end, so please type your questions into the chat window as they occur to you, and they will be addressed verbally. Please note that we're recording this webinar, and we'll send out links to the recording afterwards, and it will be posted at annexpro.com/avid within the next 24 hours. All right, let's get started. Our presenter today is Jeff Bronstein, and Jeff is Senior Product Manager for Spectra Logic. He's been with Spectra Logic for 14 years in the areas of product management, marketing operations, and business systems management. Jeff's background is in web development and programming. Currently, as Senior Product Manager, Jeff is responsible for ensuring that partners and customers have all the necessary tools to develop Black Pearl Spectra S3 applications, testing out development tools to ensure that they meet customer and partner needs, and giving feedback to the engineering team on product features and roadmap. Jeff also reaches out to potential partners and customers about how to develop Spectra S3 applications. But first, I'd like to introduce Paul Brack from Avid. Take it away, Paul. Paul Brack.
If you don't mind.
Hello. Hello, Paul. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please take it away.
All right. All right, good deal. So again, thank you, Kerry, and thank you to Annex Pro and Spectra Logic for letting Avid be a part of this presentation. Jeff, I understand, is controlling the screen. So Jeff, you can go ahead and forward to the second slide there, the one right after the Avid slide that you see. So I'm going to start with a little history of Avid. So about 3 years ago, we had a gentleman by the name of Luis Hernandez Jr. join as our CEO. Now, Luis was not from the industry, but he was on the board of directors for a couple of years before he assumed the role of CEO. So he knew the company, but he wasn't quite so familiar with the industry. So he spent about 4 or 5 months just traveling the world, talking to clients, both big and small, about their workflows, about their business needs, and about their industry trends. And what he came back with, were a couple. He identified a couple of the challenges that we knew and you as end users already knew, things that have changed within the past 6 to 8 years that are affecting our day-to-day business lives. He noted that there is more content than ever being created, and the number of devices to consume that content has grown exponentially. Consumers are spending a lot more time in front of a screen. Sometimes they're watching television and checking out their iPhone or checking out an iPad. Just spending a lot more time consuming rich media. But the budgets for you as end users to create and distribute that rich media have not kept pace with the amount of content being created. So essentially, you're being asked to do more with less, which is not quite it's not a new thing. So go to the next slide, please, Jeff. So you're being asked to create. You're still being asked to create high quality or high production quality content. The content is king, as we know. You need to produce versions of that content for all of those new devices out there. And because all of this rich media is digital, you need to figure out how to reuse those assets to make the most money you can out of them. And then you need to protect all those assets. and you need to streamline the processes or the workflows that you've got in place so that you can do it cheaper. What Lewis noticed when he was out there in the marketplace was he came from the banking industry, and he noticed that, hello, am I still on? I hope I'm still on. He noticed that we work in a very fragmented industry. People spend a lot of time and money cobbling together solutions to actually get to the end result, to produce the final asset. And he came back to Avid's product team, and he started asking a bunch of what-if questions. What if there was a sandbox in which everybody could play nicely? What if we enabled our customers to do their jobs more efficiently? And from those what-if sessions, the concept of Avid Everywhere was born. You can fast forward to the next slide, Jeff. So Avid Everywhere is essentially, it's Avid's mission statement. Quite simply, it boils down to connecting content creators and media organizations with the consumers of that rich media in a more powerful, profitable, efficient, and collaborative way. Pretty simple. But you have to have a way to bring that vision to market. So we came up with, next slide, Jeff, something that we call the Media Central Platform. So what the Media Central Platform is, and this is just an abstract for you, it's an open, extensible, tightly integrated technology ecosystem, the core of which is a set of common services and engines. So at the top there, you see a common user experience. It's essentially a browser-based interface that can run on just about any device that you can possibly think of. Below that, we have the marketplace, which is where our end users can share and sell media assets. The Artist Suite is where the creative tools lie, creative tools such as Media Composer, Pro Tools, Sibelius. The Studio Suite is where the tools for managing and distributing the rich media reside. The Storage Suite sort of speaks for itself. But at the bottom there, you'll see the common services and the common engines. This is really the core of the Media Central Platform. There are common administrative tools, common orchestration tools for automating various processes. There are metadata tagging tools to enable federated search. But most importantly, the icon down there that looks like a Wi-Fi, like you're connecting to a Wi-Fi signal, that is the connectivity toolkit. The connectivity toolkit enables third-party providers or outside companies such as SpectraLogic to tap into the Media Central Platform, and that's really where we're going with this presentation today. The strategy of that connectivity toolkit is to really unite all of the fragmented technology that we see out there that typically goes into producing or creating a workflow at the various facilities around the world. There are many levels to the connectivity toolkit, from simple API plugins to what we call an alliance partnership. Want to forward to the next slide, Jeff? To date, we have about 600 connectivity partners. At the very highest level, we've got 6 or 7 alliance partners, of which SpectraLogic is a very, very proud member. We're very happy to have these folks in our alliance partner program. Now, my first exposure to SpectraLogic was about 10 years ago when I worked for a reseller in New York City. I was working at the reseller that I worked at was predominantly an Avid reseller, so I can tell you that SpectraLogic was pretty much an alliance partner before there was such a program. We've been working very well together, and with the introduction of the Black Pearl technology on the next slide, I can tell you that we'll be working more closely and more efficiently with these guys than ever before. So I'm not going to go into the diagram right there. That's going to be Jeff's job, and with that, I'll hand it over to him. Again, thank you very much for having Avid as a part of this presentation.
Great. Thanks a lot, Paul. So let me move ahead here. Thanks for that. So most of you on the phone probably have some experience with SpectraLogic. Who are we? Well, protecting our customers' data is really our mission. That's what we are. We're focused on deep storage. We're based in Colorado in the United States. We're all over the world, though, of course. We've been in business for 37 years. We've always been privately held, a decent-sized organization. We are profitable, have been for many years. We've got money in the bank, and we put a lot of that back into research and development, into creating new deep storage devices. So Avid and SpectraLogic, it's been a great marriage. We've been working together for a long time, but now with the Black Pearl, as Paul mentioned, and we'll look at that in a minute, we have an even tighter integration, a better configuration, and we can provide a complete archive bundle that includes just Spectra and Avid to provide our customers with the best, most cost-effective and easiest archive solution to integrate with the Avid PAM environment. So what problems are we solving with this dual integration? Well, traditionally in the Avid environment, or any media and entertainment type asset management type system, when you've wanted to go to an archive system, particularly to tape, you've had to deal with additional software in the middle, right? So we call it middleware, that actually took care of moving the data from Avid over to the deep storage. And so what you end up with is essentially 3 players and 3 pieces just to be able to do archive, right? So you get a more complex solution. And traditionally, these middleware type partners, and a lot of people are happy with them, and if they're working for you, that's great. But these are just sort of some of the disadvantages of them. Most of them tend to write data in a proprietary nature, so it's harder to get it out and do anything with it if you want to try to go to a different system. Of course, you've got more parts, so it's going to be higher in cost, higher in upfront cost. It's going to be difficult to support because you have multiple vendors. And traditionally, often these middleware type solutions have charged licensed based on capacity. So the more you're archiving, the more they're charging you, in addition to having to buy, your actual archive storage, your actual archive capacity. And there's traditionally not been easy ways to really future-proof yourself with these middleware solutions, being able to migrate easily to other storage formats as they become available, and making sure your data is safe for long term. So what we've come up with is this hybrid solution where we only now have 2 players, and the middleware sort of goes away. So we're talking about Interplay PAM here, and it's able to directly archive to SpectraLogic storage. So our solution, we'll talk about a bit more with this. We call it the SpectraLogic Black Pearl Gateway. It's a gateway to our deep storage. So in the Avid PAM environment, what you would have is you'd have the Interplay Archive solution, which includes both an archive manager and an archive provider. And there's plug-in software that we provide that runs on those servers, the manager and provider software, and then they can talk directly to the Spectra Black Pearl Gateway to archive and restore. So no longer do you need a separate data mover from a third party in order to archive your assets to your deep storage. The other thing is that we really provide a standards-based type solution. So the interface that Avid is using to talk to Black Pearl is an S3 type interface, similar to what Amazon and others have popularized with the standard S3. The other thing is that when we archive to tape, our deep storage tape, we're going to be using an open format. It's called LTFS, or Linear Tape File System. And we can actually share those tapes with others and ingest tapes from others outside of the Spectra environment. And we can provide multi-tenant solutions. So the solution could be used by Avid to archive, but it could also be used by other tools, other partners, or other tools that we provide. So you can have multiple workflows, multiple paths into the archive gateway. And of course, this is clearly going to deeply reduce your cost and your complexity of your solution. So in terms of the traditional storage model, how has items been stored or archived, particularly off of Avid storage? So, this is what we have provided in the past and continue to provide is, we have network attached storage on the left. So this is our Verde appliance. It has a CIFS or NFS types interface for simple file storage interface, and that works well for a lot of workflows. We also have the ability still to work with these, middleware type products that can archive directly to our tape libraries, right? That can still be a cost-effective solution. But by introducing Black Pearl, this gateway, we open the door to many other options. So Black Pearl, it provides this object storage interface, so similar to the public cloud type interface with the S3 type protocol that it uses. And behind that, you can have many things behind the Black Pearl. So in terms of what goes into the Black Pearl, you could have now these workflows where folks are archiving directly to the Black Pearl gateway. You can also set it up to where our networked attached storage, our file system interface can actually archive to the Black Pearl gateway itself. And then that gateway can then talk directly to the tape library, right? So again, that's a lot of the expense of these middleware type solutions, is that they have to write complex software to talk directly to the tape library, because can be fairly complicated to write that software, because a tape library consists of many tape drives, and managing all that communication can be complicated. So by providing the Black Pearl, which does that for the user, they don't have to worry about that anymore, and they can now use this much simpler S3 type interface to work directly with Black Pearl. And that's why it was so easy for us to integrate with Avid with the Black Pearl gateway, because we are able to provide a much easier interface to interact with, as opposed to directly attempting to talk to tape. And that's when we first released Black Pearl a little more than 2 years ago. That's the first product that we had that allowed us to archive behind Black Pearl, meaning tape was our initial target, and that really solved a lot of problems. But we realized that with the Black Pearl gateway, we could provide other types of storage targets behind Black Pearl as well. So we introduced a couple disk products as well. The first is our nearline disk. The nearline disk consists of enterprise SAS drives, and that's actually the same type of hard drive we use in the Black Pearl itself, because Black Pearl has a cache, so when you send data to it to be archived, it first lands on its disk cache, and we use enterprise SAS drives for that. So you can also target the SAS drives, though, as a target for where you want to store things, and that could be a nearline type disk where you may be recalling things, reading and writing more frequently. The other disk product that we've got that's really unique and revolutionary that I'll talk about a bit more is Arctic Blue, and you can use that as an archive disk. So it's almost similar to tape, and you're looking at the cost closer to tape, but a performance closer to disk. So we'll look at that. The other thing that's important to note is that with the tape, we can offer an offsite storage. And so you may archive things to Black Pearl, and we'll talk a little bit about more how data policies work, but you might have different data policies as to where things go, whether it's stays in the tape library or gets ejected from the tape library for extra protection of offsite storage. So this is all presented as sort of a private cloud. So when we talk about a private cloud, we're talking about something on-premise traditionally, right? So private cloud, it's a cloud because it has the object storage S3 type interface, but it's private because it's being stored locally. But now we also offer public cloud connectivity to this gateway. So you can actually archive things to Black Pearl and have them go to the public cloud. So for example, Amazon and Azure are our initial targets. So that typically is used as a disaster recovery copy. So you'd still keep a local copy in the private cloud, but maybe make an extra copy to the public cloud for extra disaster recovery. The other thing you can do is you can replicate. So that smaller blue cloud represents another Black Pearl private cloud at another facility that might be a customer site. So they might have a Black Pearl at site A, and they may choose to replicate some or all of that data to another site at site B. And site A might have tape, and site B might have Arctic Blue disk. They can really set it up however they want. But it's easy for us to have that communication, and that's all done over Ethernet with HTTP-based communication. That's how that protocol works. Now, when data goes into Black Pearl, we put it into a container we call a bucket. And on that bucket, we can set a data policy. And you can have as many buckets as you want with as many different data policies. So data policies, as with most other types of systems, control several things. They control where the data goes, meaning which of these storage targets, be it tape or disk or cloud, public cloud. It also controls how many copies you make. So for example, you may have a data policy that makes 2 copies to tape with 1 copy automatically ejected when the tape is full. So you can control that. You can also control how long data resides on the different storage targets, particularly on disk. So one scenario might be that you have a bucket where you set a policy that you want it to go, a particular video files to go on disk for maybe 90 days, but to stay on tape forever. And that way, when files are requested in the first 90 days that they're put into the bucket, they'll come off of disk, meaning they'll be retrieved faster. But then after 90 days, when you think you might not be requesting those files as often, then they can come off of tape. So you can really set up your data policies however you want with all these different types of storage targets. So some of the big advantages of using this gateway with Black Pearl is, first of all, Black Pearl, since it's writing the data to tape, SpectraLogic has standardized, of course, like I said, on the LTFS open tape format. So we've done a couple really neat things with this. We can transfer tapes and share them. So a customer can make, say, 2 copies to tape, and they can eject 1 copy and send it to maybe a customer. Maybe they're a post-production house and they want to just send the tapes to the customer they were doing the work for or something like that. The other situation that's really nice is being able to ingest data. So I'm working on a project right now with a customer where they're going to be shooting data out on site with GoPro type cameras. They're going to write that data to an LTFS tape, so not necessarily a Spectra product, but just an open LTFS tape. And then we will be able to bring those LTFS tapes into the Black Pearl ecosystem, into the tape library, and make them part of the system and allow other clients to, like Avid that integrate with Black Pearl to be able to see that data. The other thing that we'll be adding next year that we're really excited about is automatic migration. So even though we talk about tape, when data is written to digital tape, we talk about 25, 30-year life of that tape. But the reality is you know, if you think about 30 years ago where we had our data, we obviously didn't. We've moved it, right? We want to make sure that we're always migrating to a newer format. So primarily, so that the tools to read that data, are still present, available, supported, and all that. So what we're going to be adding is an automatic media migration tool to Black Pearl, so you can easily upgrade from one tape generation to another. So LTO is the digital tape format we typically support, and so users that are on LTO 5 could automatically be able to migrate to LTO 7 when we add this feature next year, literally with just the press of a button. Move these data on these tapes over to these tapes. And the data comes out and is written to Black Pearl and then back to the tape library. So the user doesn't have to set up any complex migration process, don't have to set up any extra servers to do the migration. It really dramatically reduces the cost and time associated with media migration, which can be an important factor. And then, of course, like I said, protecting our customers' data is really our core mission at Spectra. And so we've got lots of tools to make sure that the data is written safely once it's originally written and continues to be safe as time goes on. So we have some tools such as data integrity verification, which is constantly checking the integrity of the actual data, and tools like media lifecycle management, which are constantly checking to make sure the tapes themselves are in good shape. Now, I mentioned that Black Pearl is a gateway with a disk cache, and it consists of enterprise SAS drives. It can be 4 or 8 terabytes. You can start with as small as a 2U Black Pearl, and you can go up to a 4U Black Pearl. And we'll put different quantities of SAS drives that act as the cache in that Black Pearl. Now, we can also use that cache, use those drives as a target, so that you can think of the cache as a temporary, just like it sounds, right? It's a temporary location. As data comes in, the data lands on the cache, and then Black Pearl writes it to one of the permanent storage targets, be it tape or something else. And what will happen is Black Pearl will try to keep that data on the cache as long as possible, but there's no guarantee of how long it'll stay. But you can create a storage target made out of those same drives so that you can say, I want data to go to this online storage pool, and I want it to stay there either forever or for 6 months or 2 years or 30 days, however you want, right? So this is really great for the nearline storage, right? Things that you want to be able to archive maybe, or maybe not archive isn't even the right word, right? But just store and then be able to access quickly, edit it, and then maybe, upload a new version or something like that. So that works really well, and that's, on the order of, in terms of cost, just a list price of 22 cents per gigabyte. And by the way, any prices we talk about at Spectra are ownership costs, right? When we talk about the public cloud, they're always talking about per month. These are, of course, ownership costs. Now, the other disk archive product that we're really excited about is Arctic Blue, and this is really a revolutionary product. So it's revolutionary for a couple things. The first is that we are using what's called shingled magnetic recording drives. These are really neat drives. They're SATA drives, but they're targeted more towards the enterprise. They're very affordable, and they're called shingled because the tracks on the drives are overlapped, kind of like the shingles on a roof. And I won't go into too much technical detail, but what that ends up meaning is that they're really good for writing once and then using them as data, as archive for that data you've written, so reading them back. They're not good for frequent updates, deletes, changes, things like that. Now, it turns out, what kind of medium does that sound like? Well, it turns out it's a lot like tape, and so Spectra works really well with this. So we use these chassis that hold 96 drives per 4U chassis. So you end up with this almost 800 terabytes raw in one chassis, and then we put in a very big software RAID stripe in these to make them very highly reliable. So you can lose up to 3 drives in the stripe and still retain all of your data. So they're highly reliable. They're low cost because they're 8 terabytes and they're SMR SATA drives. So we can provide a very low cost solution on the order of 14 to 7 cents a gig, depending on the size that you're looking at. The other most revolutionary thing we're doing with this is we're actually powering down the drives. So remember, Arctic Blue must be behind the Black Pearl gateway. That's the only way that SpectraLogic sells Arctic Blue, is with this object storage Black Pearl interface. But because Black Pearl has a cache and data lands on the cache before it's archived, this allows us to manage these drives. And what we'll actually do is we will power them down to their lowest power state. What that allows us to do is to greatly extend the life of the drive. We predict, based on talking with the manufacturer and our own engineering team, that that's going to more than double the life of the drive to over 7 years. That's an issue that, as you think about disk systems, is having to migrate off of them as they age out. So that's going to extend the life of the drive, and then of course the beautiful side benefit is you're drastically reducing the power cost. So very affordable disk archive. It acts like tape in terms of cost, but it acts like disk in terms of access time and random access, right? The power down is pretty minimal. At the lowest power state, it could take a maximum theoretical time is 13 seconds. We've never actually seen it take that long. So there is a bit more of a delay than the online disk we were just looking at, but for most people that seconds is totally acceptable. So we'll go ahead on to the next slide. So here's Spectra's bread and butter. Of course, this is how most people know Spectra. We really believe in tape as a storage medium. We are really the main player, putting a lot of R&D still into tape libraries, into tape storage. We really believe in the medium. We've got, why do people choose our tape libraries? They're very affordable, of course, highly reliable. Tape is a very highly reliable medium. They're very fast. You can write tapes at a very fast rate. They're very dense, so we have some patented designs in terms of how we store and stack the tapes in what we call terapacks, which are like shelves, where when you pull out one of these packs, you get 10 tapes in a pack. So it's highly dense. It also greatly reduces the power consumption. People use tape, of course, because it's more reliable. It can't be hacked. It can't be stolen online, right, if you've got an off-site copy. So there's a lot of good reasons for tape. We really believe in it. We start with a T50E, we call it, and these numbers you see roughly correspond to the number of tapes that our tape libraries hold. So we have our entry-level T50E. And by the way, we have a really nice bundle, an affordable bundle that we sell with Avid. It's in the Avid price book that includes our 2U Black Pearl and a T50E, and it's a great way to get an entry-level, affordable deep archive solution. So T50E, you can start with as few as 10 tapes, and if we're looking at our LTO7, which is the most recent generation of tapes, that's 6 terabytes per tape, so you're looking at a start of 60 terabytes. And then you go all the way up to our T-Finity, which can go extremely high in slot count, and we can actually put 1 exabyte of data. So you're talking, giga, tera, peta, exabyte. We can put 1 exabyte of data in a single unit where all the data can be accessed by the dual robots. So there's really no limits in terms of how much data we can access. And we also provide an easy way to upgrade it. We call it transcale. So we can do is, like, for example, you've got the T200 today, and you want to go up to the T680 because now you have more that you need to store. We'll take most of the parts and pieces out of that T200, the drives, the tapes, the robot, that type of stuff. And we'll basically just take away the old sheet metal, give you credit for that. You buy the new sheet metal box, we put in all the new parts, and you're up to go. And we can do that in like 4 hours. So very easy process. So in terms of archiving, we've got the great solution that you've seen in terms of archiving directly between Avid and Black Pearl. But what we typically find, and this is true for all of our current Avid PAM customers that are archiving to Black Pearl, is they typically have other workflows. They might have certain video files or other things besides video files that for whatever reason sit outside of the Avid environment. And they still want a way to be able to archive or protect those. And so, of course, we've got a number of other partners that we've worked with, even outside of the media and the entertainment space that have integrated with Black Pearl. But we at Spectra have also provided a number of tools that are just very simple and they're free to archive. And so you can see this tool here. We call it the Deep Storage Browser. It's free and open source. You can see at the website listed. On the left is your local file system or server's file system, whatever it may be. And on the right is the Black Pearl and its buckets. And you can easily drag and drop between your file system and the Black Pearl. And then on that Black Pearl, you can set whatever bucket policies you want. Again, do you want it to go to tape? Do you want it to go to Arctic Blue, the public cloud, wherever you want it to go? And you can see in the interface where the files currently reside. So this is a really great way to interact with other workflows besides the Avid. So all of our customers that are using Black Pearl have at least 2 workflows. Some of them even have 3. We have a couple other free and open source tools besides the Deep Storage Browser. We have one called CyberDuck, which is another, it's used by millions of people worldwide to transfer files between different systems. We have a plugin for Black Pearl for that. We also have a command line version of this tool, essentially the browser. We call it the Java command line interface, and people use it to, script. For people that are comfortable with the command line, they can write scripts to do basic archive and restore, and they can also schedule things to happen, like on maybe a cron job, a scheduled job that archives or restores files on some regular basis. So lots of great options. Traditionally, when people have had tape systems, they've only had one software package that could really interface with that tape library. But now with having the Black Pearl Gateway, an affordable solution in front of the tape library, they can have multiple paths, multiple workflows into the tape library. And one thing I don't think I mentioned, and I should, of course, is Black Pearl, we don't charge based on how much capacity you have behind Black Pearl. So you still have to, of course, buy a smaller or larger tape library, for example, depending on how much you need to store. But there's no difference in charge in the Black Pearl on licensing for how much it costs to archive different amounts of data. And that's really how we can provide a really cost-effective solution to our customers. So here's just an example of how a customer could have multiple workflows. So on the top in red, they're using Avid Interplay PAM with the Archive Manager to archive to Black Pearl, and they might have, say, a tape library in this example. But then on the bottom, you can see they're using our Deep Storage Browser to archive other media files outside of our Avid Archive solution. So multiple paths that can be used. So the overall benefits of the Avid Spectra integration, and by the way, that's just a little screenshot of what it looks like. So you can see literally directly from within Avid, you're choosing Black Pearl as an archive profile as a target for where you're archiving. But it's really simple. We can provide it as a much lower cost, from a single provider. We're archiving to the LTFS open format, which are really self-describing tapes, and this really provides this fully featured archive. We can do things in conjunction with how Avid and Spectra have integrated. We can really provide a preview of the video, of course, prior to restore. We can do partial file restore, so we've integrated with that. So if you have a lot of workflows where you're pulling back just parts of files, the Spectra Avid integration with Black Pearl supports that. And everything is fully managed by Interplay Archive, right? So when you archive something to Black Pearl, the Interplay database knows where it is, right? So if you are searching for something, you bring it up, it's going to be able to tell you where that's located. So it's all an integrated solution. So if you've got additional questions, or we'll take those, of course, if you're looking for more details, please go to spectralogic.com, check out the Black Pearl product, check out our Avid information on the website, and to learn more, go ahead and contact us at the email addresses. We've got Ray Heineman online, who's our Canadian sales rep, who can help you out, or contact us via email or the phone number there. And with that, I'll see if we've got any questions. Jesse or anybody else, is there any questions that people have typed in the chat, or can we answer anything?
Yes, we have a couple here. So the first one is, when should I consider implementing Avid Archive using Black Pearl? Today we just keep all content information on local disk.
Yeah, so I'll let the other guys chime in as well, but I mean, for me, it's a couple things, right? You're buying whatever storage you're buying to store on disk, and like Paul showed at the beginning, people's rate of data growth is happening very fast. It's unlikely that your budget is increasing at that same rate to purchase disk, and so you have to come up with something that's more affordable, right? So at that point where you realize that your storage capacity is going to exceed the dollars available to continue to buy that disk, that's when you should really look at an archive solution. You know, we can provide a quote for you quickly, and you can really do the ROI analysis yourself and say, okay, well, I can continue to buy, you know, primary disk storage, it costs X, or I can go to this archive solution, it costs Y, and it's just as easy to use. It's a seamless integration. It's no problem using it. There's really not much of a downside to the archive solution, other than sometimes I might have to wait a few seconds to get my files back. So what is the cost, and how much am I willing to give up in a few seconds of time for the huge benefit I could potentially gain on the return and the cost on buying an archive solution.
That's great. Okay. I think this is a question for Paul. What is the difference between Avid PAM and Avid MAM?
So Avid PAM is short for Interplay Production Asset Management, and that's the asset manager that sits on top of an actual production. It sounds like I'm being redundant there, but it's for your producers and directors to help manage the reviews and approvals during the course of the production of a finished piece, during the course of the production of a piece. Avid Media Asset Management sits on top of an enterprise, and that's more for managing all of the finished assets, the legal rights, and so forth. So it's Avid Media Asset Management is the umbrella asset manager, production asset manager. The production asset manager is the one that is specific to working on a particular movie or a commercial or something like that.
Yeah, and this is Jeff, and to follow up, Spectra and Avid also have an Avid MAM integration as well, so we can archive and restore from either of those types of solutions.
Fantastic. And then how long can I store my content on digital tape?
Sure. So I alluded to this briefly, but the life, depending on who you ask and what you look at, it's typically 25 to 30 years. So that's something you can very much store and feel confident in. It's, what all the big players use when they want to, folks that have stuff that they want to keep forever, TV or movie assets or healthcare records or whatever it is, something they want to keep for a long time. But the reality is, as I mentioned, is that people tend to migrate sooner than that, just because they want to always make sure that the tool that they're actually using to read the tapes is in a modern format. So people choose different paths on how to do that. You can read the files. In LTO, typically they'll read two generations back. So today an LTO 7 tape can read all the way back to LTO 5. So you could at least wait that long, between two generations before you migrate to another storage medium. But if you look at terms of like error bit rates and things like that, tape is always going to be orders of magnitude more reliable than disk.
Great. And what's the minimum Avid Black Pearl configuration? How much capacity does it provide?
Yeah, so the entry-level system that we have a bundle that's in Avid's, they have it in their pricing book actually, is the 2U Black Pearl with a T50E, and that's like I said, 10 slots to start with. So the T50E can start at 10 slots and go up to 50 slots, and slots meaning how many tapes can it hold, of course. So the 10 would be at LTO7, which is 6 terabytes for tape. That would be 60 terabytes. And then the T50E would be maximum would be 50 slots times 6 per tape, so that's 300 terabytes. And then, of course, if you exceeded that, you could go to our next model, which is our T120, which, as the name implies, can hold 120 tapes. So but the entry-level package is that bundle that you could buy from Avid, and they sell it. They actually have a bundle that they'll sell where they include not just the Black Pearl and the T50E, but also the Interplay Archive Engine and Provider, which are the components, as I showed in the diagram, you need to integrate with Black Pearl. So they'll sell you a bundle that includes all that for a very reasonable price.
Yep, it's less than $60,000.
Correct.
Great, and that's all the questions we have in the chat and Q&A boxes. Carrie, would you mind reiterating how people can get in touch with Annex Pro and your website and where they can go to get more information? It looks like Carrie might be muted at this point, but his first slide mentioned you can visit them at annexpro.com or email sales@annexpro.com. And I believe that wraps up today's webinar. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to anyone who spoke today or sales@annexpro.com. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.